Notre Dame is number one.
Notre Dame with a miracle win as a
He's going in. Notre Dame has scored.
Coming up last amongst the BCS schools relative to Media Day, you've heard probably every soundbite as it relates to the 2012 season, and we're like everybody else in the country. We're excited about the 2012 season. It's football time here at Notre Dame, and that's an exciting time of the year for all of our coaches, our players, everybody associated with the university. But I think it's important to note that 2012 is a new year. We graduated players. There's a new dynamic on our football team. There are new players that have emerged as leaders. So we're certainly, from a coaching standpoint, really excited about our players and what they can bring, not only as players and winning football games, but the leadership and the kind of things that we want done on a day-to-day basis. So, again, I don't want to get into all of the coach speak that many of you heard, but we believe that we're going to put a football team on the field that will take one game at a time, because that's what you'll have to do with the kind of schedule that we have put together this year. We see it as a great challenge. We want to play these kinds of schedules, and now our players understand how they have to go attack it. And you can't climb Mount Everest in one day, but you can do it with great preparation. You can do it with a focus from one day, one moment, 1 hour at a time, and our players will look at our schedule and say one game at a time. And if we do that, we think that we can get to the top of the mountain. You'll see some new faces. Clearly, we'll have a new quarterback that will start against Navy. We've certainly feel as though we have capable players that can come in and step in at that position and help our football team win. We're into year 3 now, and our players know what to expect offensively, defensively, and in special teams. And we believe that we're going to hit the ground running and, again, save you from all of the superlatives. I know when I go to Media Day, when I was in the Big East, or the Mid-American Conference, the biggest thing that I was concerned about is that everybody was going to have an undefeated season because there's so much enthusiasm. We have the same here and excited about it, but I think it's probably better that we save that talk for action, and that's what this year is about. It's about doing it, not talking about it, and that will probably be the theme as we move forward this year. So that'll open up to questions. Guys weren't ready for such a short lead-in. I understand.
Brian, to your left, did you order the new podium there? Are you behind that?
I got to be honest with you. I was hoping that it would downscale from last year, make it even smaller, but I think we needed it for video operations.
A real broad question to start, but what constitutes success for your team this season?
I think it's the same. Anytime you play a game it's worth keeping score, it's something that you want to win. So I think success for us is winning, and everything that we do on the field, off the field. Successful businesses and organizations, have their own internal goals, and we've got some internal goals. But I know we'll be judged, by wins and losses, and we know that. But there's a lot of things that go into it that. When we talk about success, we have some internal things that we keep within the house, but know full well that success is going to be judged by wins.
What areas of Andrew Hendricks' game does he need to improve in order to win the starting job? And then the same question with Everett Golson.
Well, I think you could add all the quarterbacks. If you really want to get into it, Tommy Rees has got areas that he's got to improve. Gunnar Keel. Specifically, he needs to keep playing, keep getting reps, keep learning the game. He's got tools to play the position at the highest level. I think it's just a matter of him maturing and playing the game, getting as many reps as possible.
During the spring, the right guard and the right tackle position, you experimented a lot with guys switching back and forth. Do you continue that experiment during the preseason, or do guys settle in and hit the ground running at one spot as you open camp?
Well, to answer the question specifically, we'll keep moving people around because that next player in, Tim, as you know, is going to have the ability to play more than one spot. But I think that there's competition at that position at the guard position. You're looking at, Golick, Mike Golick, who played a lot of center for us last year. We expect that, Braxton is going to be able to come in and hold that position down. So you've got him and Nick Martin over at right guard, Lombard at right tackle. But I think you're going to see Nick Martin maybe take some reps out there with Tate Nichols. So I think there's 3 or 4 players on the right side that have to be interchangeable, on that side of the ball.
In terms of health of your team, who can't answer the bell starting tomorrow?
Go through my medical here. Collinsworth is the only one. Austin Collinsworth is the only player that is out. We have a couple of players that are limited in terms of what they can do. Luke Massa is limited but cleared to do a lot of work. He's made just great progress. I think that's pretty much it. So Collinsworth would be the only one that cannot answer the bell tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Brian, over here. Can you talk about the cornerback position opposite Bennett Jackson, how comfortable you are with the candidates there, and then your cornerback depth?
Well, certainly, Bennett, Josh Atkinson, and Cam McDaniel, we saw a lot of them in the spring game. So those 3 young men have a good grasp of our system, understand what we want them to do, so we feel really good there. Lo Wood, as you know, played a lot for us last year, had an interception in a game. We feel really comfortable with him. So you've got 4 corners that have a lot of experience in our offense. Now, they haven't played a ton, but that's what college football is about. People graduate, and it's the next guy's chance, and we feel really comfortable with those 4. Jalen Brown has to continue to improve and emerge for us, and we've moved Kaveri Russell over to the defensive side of the ball to be our 6th scholarship corner. So we've got 6 players over there that are on scholarship that we expect to contribute and make it a very competitive situation.
In the opener against Navy with Carlo out, do you move anybody from Mike to Dan Fox's position to shore up the depth a little bit there, or you go with Joe Schmidt as the backup? And
we'll rotate in, Kendall Moore, and we'll rotate in Joe Schmidt and Jared Grace. So there'll be 5 inside linebackers that will prepare for Navy.
You mentioned at the end of spring you felt the summer was going to create some separation from the quarterbacks. Obviously, you can't watch them. You only get reports and so forth. But what did you learn about your foursome of quarterbacks over the summer, what they did?
Well, I didn't learn as much, about the quarterbacks in terms of, as you mentioned, what they did from a football standpoint. But I was around here a lot and saw a focused group of players at that position, a group that was doing a lot of film study on their own, just a group of guys that know that that's a position that requires a great deal of attention to detail, and we feel going into practice tomorrow that all those guys have put in the time, the necessary time, to be the quarterback here at Notre Dame.
Last one from me, with relative to the safeties, you mentioned Collinsworth wasn't ready to go. Is there an update on his prognosis? Is it going to be October or later, or is it still kind of up in the air? And then has anybody emerged kind of from that pack of McCarthy, Badger, Elijah Shoemate, and so forth that could maybe fill his role until he comes back?
Yeah, we won't know until we get a chance to practice those guys. But you're right. McCarthy, Badger, and all of the freshmen, Barati, Shoemate, Turner, C.J. Proceeds. We've got a lot of players back there, so that's one area that Coach Elliott, will get a lot of opportunity to evaluate some of those young players. And as far as the timetable for Austin, those shoulders are generally six months. And if we do the math, that's late October, November.
Coach, how do you plan to handle Tommy Rees's snaps and reps during training camp, knowing you have to prepare for a full season, but also for a season opener that he won't be involved in?
We got a plan for that. Certainly, not every rep that you take is a rep towards Navy. So there'll be opportunities for Tommy to stay sharp. Yep.
Coach, you lost a good runner in Jonas Gray, but looks like you gained at least 3 capable guys, along with Sierre, with Theo's move, Carlisle's transfer, and George seemed to emerge in the spring. Is August kind of about a little bit of a pecking order there, and how many you can get in?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, I think we feel very good about the depth at that position. All of them have unique qualities at the position, and again, another group of players that, as coaches, we have to find ways to get them on the field and get them involved in the offense. So, yeah, we like the guys we got there. Now let's see how this plays out when the football starts tomorrow. How
much does it help, not including Sierre, that they be versatile because of the slot running back position you've kind of created for the offense?
Well, if you're not versatile, you better be really, really good at being one-dimensional. So I think it helps, certainly, but I wouldn't say that from a recruiting standpoint, if you don't have that versatility, we're not going to recruit you. There's more than one way to get this done. But as it sits in our program right now, versatility, applies to the guys that we have. And so mandatory, no, but it helps in the way that we want to run our offense.
I think you mentioned kind of early in your tenure here you wanted to have, switching to the receivers, 6 receivers maybe for a game day rotation would be ideal. You haven't really been able to get there. You got 4 or 5, it seems like, the first 2 years. Does losing a guy like Floyd open that up to the chance that a 6th guy can emerge, even a 5th guy can emerge?
I think so. I think, with graduation, and I've seen this over 22 years, presents new opportunities for other players to step up, and I think you'll see that. I think you'll see some players that maybe were in the shadows a little bit emerge and play big for us. So, we've got a lot to make up for with the loss of Michael, but we think we've got very capable players that can step up and provide us, with the number of catches that Michael had.
Yep. Brian, to your left here. You mentioned just a few minutes ago that Andrew just needs reps, and I would imagine that Everett and Gunnar fall into that same category. They just need to play. With that in mind, how much patience do you have to have with them, and what kind of growing pains can you allow for?
I don't have any patience for that. I mean, you know me. I want it done the right way, but we have to have a quarterback that we can trust. That's going to take great care of the football. That's going to get us in the right place. So, as we move forward here, it's developing that trust with our quarterbacks, and not accepting anything less than that level of trust of taking care of the football. So that was the emphasis in the spring, and that will continue to be the emphasis. That the starting quarterback against Navy is the guy that we believe carries those traits with him, and that we can trust that he's going to make good decisions.
In your experience, is that something that can happen strictly in practice, or will you need to see that on a Saturday before you feel really comfortable about that?
Well, you hope that you build the habits of doing it the right way throughout practice. I very rarely have seen a quarterback have sloppy practices and all of a sudden just turn it on in the game. I've seen quarterbacks that have been disciplined and have made the correct reads that the game comes easier to him. So our evaluations will be on, a lot of the practice work. And then when you get into games, how you handle the bright lights and the fast action. And some handle it better than others.
Coach, with Tommy out for the Navy game, what is your plan as far as just divvying up the reps in practice with the quarterbacks?
Again, I think, early on we've got to be able to see 3 quarterbacks, and as we move closer to, finding if there's a separation, then we'll start to separate the reps. But we don't go into practice one saying, okay, he's getting 80%, he's getting 20, or he's getting 70, 30, we're not at that point. So it's going to take some time for us to figure that out in terms of who's going to get those reps. And it's probably going to take us a little time. But ultimately, we want to be able to give the quarterback, for Navy, a lot of reps leading into the game. So where we start is we've got to be able to evaluate them, based upon what they did this summer, and then start to close in on what that pecking order is. So I don't know the exact date, but we'll know it when we see it.
You announced the starter last year on the first day of classes just because you said you wanted to start now preparing for the opener with that in mind. Do you have anything in mind right now as far as first day of classes or the week before the Navy as far as when you want to get it, or is that open-ended too?
Yeah, honestly, I would tell you that it's going to take some practices, for us to even get the reps to separate. So for me to have a date in mind, ideally we'd like to, in a week's time, say, all right, there's great separation there, here's the quarterback. That's what everybody would want to do, because then you get the continuity with your offense. But we just have to take this one practice at a time before we get into those specifics.
Could you see playing 2 quarterbacks in the opener? Just separate?
I think everything's on the table. I don't know that we've taken anything off the table relative to the quarterback position. Ideally, I'm like everybody else in this room. I'd like to have one quarterback and have him be the guy. But we won't know until we get out there and put the pads on and get live action and see how these guys react to those scenarios and situations.
Okay. You practiced in the morning in the spring the last couple of years. I noticed several practices you have morning sessions, especially the week of the Navy game. Is that an acclimation? Or is that something you see going into the season?
No, that's acclimatization for the earlier start, obviously the 9 a.m. start. So we want to get in some early practices. And, as you know, those schedules are subject to change. We'll get a sense and feel for our football team. We've got 29 practice opportunities listed there. Who knows, there might be a day where we give them an afternoon off or not have a 9 a.m. I'll get a sense and feel as we move through the process.
And you still have the same plan as in previous years? Monday is the day off? Or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
Brian, up here, you were quoted yesterday as saying you feel like you got a decent idea about who you think the quarterback's going to be. What have you seen over the last 4 months to give you that idea?
Nothing that I've seen with my own eyes. As I mentioned, evaluating everything since the quarterbacks have stepped on campus. I think it's a cumulative effect, more so, Pete, than what happened in the last 4 months. So I got a report from our strength and conditioning coach based upon non-football related activities, and that's hard to stretch into how they're going to look on the field. As I mentioned, I've been around the building a lot and gotten a chance to interact with a number of the players. So I think we take all of that and we put it together, and that's what's given me some idea as to how this thing may shake out. But the ultimate decider will be what they do out on the practice field.
I don't think it's much of a secret that Everett over the last couple of years has been figuring out what it takes to be a quarterback off the field as well, whether it be film room, being strong academically. How would you kind of grade him out in those 2 areas?
Pleased, very pleased with his progress.
And in terms of interacting with your strength staff, your freshman class, guys that you've heard from Coach Longo about, hey, this is a guy who he might not be mentally ready to go, but physically, this is a guy that might be able to help us.
I think the normal cast of characters, in a sense, the skill guys are a lot further along because, they don't require some of the strength numbers that maybe some of the linemen need in those situations. So I think what Coach Longo impressed upon me was that when the freshman class came here, there was a burning desire for that group to want to contribute right away. All of them, every single one of them, with a mindset of, and his characterization of this class was they're ready to play. Now, some physically, some mentally are going to happen. It's going to happen quicker. But as a group, the mindset was to come in and play right away.
Did you get much of a sense about what you have there with Ferguson, Neal, and Brown?
Yes.
And how do you feel about those guys?
They got great film from high school, and I just usually follow your star ratings and put all my stock in your ability to evaluate them, and you think they're really good. So we run back to the office and slot them in.
Big picture, I think at this time last year you talked about the ingredients of this team. You really liked the makeup of your roster, kind of where things were set up. How do you feel about that dynamic right now in terms of the ingredients you have, and whether you have enough ingredients to achieve at the level you want to and need to here?
I think a lot of it is, there's so much more of a comfort level that I have with the players and they have with me, after 3 years. They know me a lot better. I know them so much better. So there's just a sense and feeling within the room that we're all on the same page, and I think that happens over time. You wish you could get it done immediately, but I think going into year 3, there's definitely a connection that we all have, and maybe it's because I'm doing a better job too as the head coach.
Coach, right here up front. I know you haven't seen a lot on the field of Amir Carlisle, but the reports that you've gotten over the summer and all that, what can we expect as far as his ability to contribute coming off that injury?
Yeah. Well, again, I think if you take what he did at USC as a true freshman, and now his summer workouts, an explosive player, somebody that can get big chunk plays at the position, and a kid that wants to be the best. He's just got a great makeup and a desire to want to be the guy. So you love that when you have a number of really good players at the position, and he's not discouraged one bit that he's going to come in and be the guy. You like that kind of that confidence, and so he has that confidence in his ability, and again, he's got a great burst.
Okay, and how did you guys as a staff handle the whole Penn State situation and the availability of their players?
We treated it as if those players were committed to Penn State on their roster, and we kind of used the recruiting scenario, if you will, and that they were committed, and the only way that we would be involved with them is if they decommitted, and they publicly said that they're looking to transfer. And if that occurred and they wanted to transfer, then we would have taken it to the next step. We never got to that point, so it never became a situation for us that we had to take that next step.
Coach, over here, George Atkinson III has been really good at kickoff returns. Any chance of him moving to punt returns?
Why, do we need help there? You didn't see our stats from last year, I guess. You need to pay more attention. I think, when you look at the punt return situation from last year, Michael Floyd showed that he could probably be a great punt returner. So I think if there was a problem with punt return last year, it was that the head coach didn't put Michael Floyd back there quicker. I think if you look at all the teams that had great punt return teams last year, they had #1 draft picks, or guys that are going to be #1 draft picks, because it is so hard to return a punt. Northwestern led the Big Ten last year, and they returned 8 punts all of last year. So we returned 15. So it's just a tough play now in college football with the spread punt and the ability to get downfield before the ball is kicked. It's the rules changed. You know, we had Rocket and Tim Brown, but those rules didn't apply when they played. And so, not to take anything away from their ability, but we certainly do not want to be where we were last year. So all of those kids are going to be evaluated at that position.
What does having Braxton Cave back in the lineup do for the offense?
It strengthens us. Mike Golick did a very good job for us, but now that if we can get both those guys on the field, you know, that makes us a better football team because you got more experience. You know, playing the center position is arguably one of the most difficult positions because you're looking at defenses, you're snapping the ball, and then you've got to execute your own work. And to have two guys that have got really good experience against some really good teams, you know, obviously Mike against Florida State, you know, he's played against some of the best defenses, USC. So I think when you add him to the mix, having Braxton back, you know, allows us to be a better offensive line.
And last one, do you still expect Kona and Nix to share snaps at nose guard, or are you looking for a full-time guy there?
No, I don't know that one player could play the whole game for us there. So, you know, we're gonna get as many guys in the game that can play, you know, at the highest level. So, I would not expect Lewis Nix to take all of those reps, and I wouldn't expect Kona to grab them all. I would expect that, you know, across the board. You know, the guys that didn't come off the field last year were Harrison Smith and our corners. But everybody else, you know, somebody came in there and took some reps for them. So I expect the same.
Coach, to your left. You've hinted at that you know who the starter could be or who the favorite is. Do you mind sharing?
I don't want to make this more than it is. I have not decided. The question was asked, do you have an idea? I've got an idea, but an idea is all I have. It's not like it's this guy and we are set for it. Or I would be less than honest in answering the question relative to reps that was asked earlier. I've got an idea, but we got to see how this plays out. And so, you know, we're going to have to rep these guys. We're going to have to give them a lot of work, a lot of situations. We'll be doing a lot more 11 on 11. Where we've got to put our players, in particular the quarterback, in as many situations that put 11 players out on the field at one time. Half line, 7-on-7, inside drill, all great drills. Don't get the quarterback to the level that we need to. So a lot more 11 on 11 reps for this football team to help us answer that question.
And do you want the Week 1 starter to be your starter for the entire year?
If he plays well against Navy. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if we get the guy and he starts against Navy and he doesn't play very well, I don't want him to start next week, nor do you. But I would like everybody else, to prepare somebody and have a great game against Navy and then make it a difficult decision what you do in Week 2.
And can you just talk about giving an equal punishment to Tommy and Carlo? Obviously, you know, by the letter of the law, Tommy received a greater punishment from the courts, but you dealt kind of what seemed like an equal punishment for the two. Can you just talk about that decision?
Yeah, I mean, all cases of discipline, you know, are about the individual. You know, it's. I don't have a book of if you do this, you get this. If you do this, you get that. I look at the individual and try to keep it case to case. You know, I know just dealing with my own kids, you know, each one, you know, needs to be handled a little bit differently. So I look at the facts, I look at information, and I make decisions based upon the individual. And at the end of the day, I want great citizens. I want all our guys to be great citizens. And so whatever those sanctions are, it's with that end in mind, to have really good citizens that represent our football program. Yes.
I guess the offensive priority is pretty obvious. The defensive side of the ball, though, how would you rank maybe the top few priorities that you have going into the fall?
I think it's unit. I think it's all 11. You know, clearly we're going to have 2 new corners, you know, so, you know, getting them part of the unit, so there's one heartbeat on that side of the ball is very, very important. Certainly, continuing to build on last year. If you take, there was probably 5 or 6 plays. If you take out, if we make a play here, there's a different outcome to the game. So our focus is eliminating those 5 or 6 plays as a unit. And so I think everything that you'll see out of our defense is how we get 11 guys, not, hey, we just got to spend time on the cornerback position. And then getting the right mix on the field, because we've got some pretty good depth and getting those players on the field.
And then you've obviously been doing this a long time. These freshmen that are coming in here this week, what do you think is going to be the biggest eye-opening experience their first week on a college campus?
I just think the balance is probably going to be the most difficult. Now, the one advantage that we do have is these freshmen, the rigor of their schedule is unmatched. They go to class in the summer all day, and then they work out. I would be challenged to think of anybody else that has the kind of schedule that these freshmen have. And so they've already been through it. They go to class all day and they come for workouts, which makes the fall a little bit easier for them, quite frankly. Whereas a lot of other schools, that fall is a bit overwhelming, but I still think it comes back to the long term. They got here in June, and they'll never experience the length of a season that they're going to go through and the rigors of that season. So just monitoring them every day. I don't think there's a day where you go, okay, we're into they're going to hit the wall here. I think you've got to be monitoring all those young guys because they've been here since June, and it's such a long season. We got to keep an eye on them, week to week.
And then last one, rumor has it, field turf. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I want to go back on that one a little bit, and I want to add one word. I said field turf is coming. I want to say I hope field turf is coming. And as you all know, and I've said this a million times, that's above my pay grade. I'm not the one who's rolling out the turf. I know you guys know that. So, certainly Jack Swarbrick, that's his domain. I do not want to do Jack's job. I got enough to do with my own. But I think I've made it pretty clear to all of you that I hope that that's where we go, but that's clearly not my decision.
Brian, down the middle here. From a skill set standpoint, Michael Floyd was a very unique receiver. Given the skill sets you have coming back, how does that change your passing game this year?
I don't think it changes at all. I think, what Michael did is, for me, it's still about, it's the player, not the play. I don't get caught up in the play. It's the players that we have around. So it won't change our passing game because our passing game can adapt to any player that's out there, and we can feature anybody on the field. So those are never concerns for me because I know that those guys, they're going to graduate, they're going to move on. So to set up an offense that features one particular player and that's your offense, I think that's you won't transition very well, and we think we can handle any transition.
So given the fact that he was a big physical receiver, you don't seem to have an abundance of big physical receivers. How do you use these guys?
Catch it 3 yards, make 2 people miss, and run past all of them. That's it. You know what I mean? So there's so many different ways. We got to catch a couple of 5-yard passes and turn them into 45. Or we got to run by a couple of guys. Or we've got to do some things that get the ball in their hands quickly and we can get yards after. So not that Michael couldn't do that for us. He did a great job, a big physical kid. But we think we've got some guys that can make big plays in different ways.
Brian, we're here, right? A kicker is one of those 2 guys ahead of the other, or do you see that being open going into fall?
The free kick, the place kicker.
Place kicker.
Yeah. I think going through the spring, Nick, Tausch showed himself to be pretty consistent kicker for us, PAT field goal. I think we're still working with him and Bridza. Kyle has shown a strength. As you know, with the ball moving up to the 35-yard line now, we feel that both are capable. but Kyle's a little bit stronger and maybe be able to kick that thing out of the back of the end zone every time. So we'll continue to work on that. But, you know, moving forward, I think Nick had a very good spring for us. We feel very confident in his ability. Kyle is right there at the waiting. I think we've got two really good kickers at that position.
Lewis Nix was a guy who was in a little bit of a rut in the spring. Just how have you seen him mature in the months since and get ready for the season?
Yeah, I wouldn't have, you know, I think we probably spent a little bit too much time talking about Lewis Nix' rut. You know, he's probably like every other kid that's at Notre Dame. It's a, you know, you got to grind sometimes. And we've had a number of guys that had to grind through a very competitive academic situation, you know, and playing football. But we love Lewis. We love what he's doing. He's working hard in the classroom, and I expect him to have a great season for us.
And just to clarify, there was some talk over the spring about Troy Nicholas and head injury or what have you. Could you just clear whatever may have been wrong?
Yeah, Troy
with
is
okay?
cleared 100% to play.
Coach, I just want to jump back real quick on the suspensions. At any point, did you consider anything more severe or even none at all? And is the one-game suspensions for the pair sufficient?
No, I always try to consider. I don't, as I mentioned, I'd be disingenuous to say that I treat everybody, you know, differently relative to the circumstances for me to have made up my mind, you know. So I try to consider everything and you know, making the best decision for that individual. So I think if you go in there with a predisposed, hey, I'm just doing this, well then you just might as well just paint with a broad brush. I try to look at each one individually and try to make the best decision as it relates to the individual with knowing what I want in the end. And that is, I want good young men and how I can get that as it relates to accountability. No one want to talk about the tight end, Tyler Eifert, or Manti Te'o? We're at Notre Dame. These guys are, does anybody get a media guide? Did you get a media guide to these people? I think they're on the cover. Gosh, I was hoping to talk about those guys a little bit.
To talk about the first opponent a little bit, you have Navy first.
Yes.
You've seen them a couple times, obviously, but now you have extra time to prepare for them. You don't have to switch gears defensively mid-season for that unique offense. That must be beneficial.
Yes, we'd rather have it this way than have them in the middle of the season. Still doesn't make the task any easier in the sense that how you have to execute on game day. You know, you could have 3 weeks, 5 weeks. If you don't play assignment football, if you're not disciplined, you're going to get beat. Navy will beat you. But clearly, we'd rather have them where we have a little bit of attention to Navy leading up to them other than the 3 or 4 days that, you know, most of the time is what you're left to prepare with. Football, that was a football game question right there. Any other?
Coach, one more. Can you talk about your tight end, Tyler Eifert, and Manti Te'o?
Just so you know, when the exclusives come out and the one-on-ones with Obama, you had a one-on-one with Jack Swarbrick too, didn't you? Oh, that was a 2-on-1. Okay. Here's what I love about Tyler Eifert. You know you're moving your program along when your best players are your best workers. And our best players had an incredible summer. Here's a young man that's up to 260 pounds, can hit a 7-iron, 195 yards. I say that only because he was out at our Kelly Cares function, and I've never seen a guy hit a golf ball that far. I hope he catches everything too. But he's just been incredible to work with over the past just the past couple of years, to see his development and his maturity. He's a leader on our football team. When I first got here, he was in the back row. I mean, he was 2 or 3 rows back. Now he's out front. And so you can understand from my perspective, that's pretty exciting when your best player, one of your best players, has that kind of desire to be the best.
Coach, last question. Manti Te'o had already built up pretty good legacy here. What can he do in his senior year just to cement what he's built
at Notre Dame?
Well, that's a good question. He's done so much. He's such a great representative of our program, but he has unfinished business as it relates to this football team. And he's really stepped up as a leader, more so. I know we talk about leadership and we talk about it in general terms, but our big thing this year has been the A-team. And the A-team is about peer accountability. Manti is holding his peers to the same level that he holds himself, and he's being vocal about it. I think when he came here, I think some of his comments were, it's hard for me to be vocal about certain things because there's so many. Well, he's that guy now. He's that senior. He's that leader. And so I would say that that has probably stood out more than anything else, is that he's holding others to the highest standards that he sets for himself. And again, as we talked about Tyler, and why I'm excited about our football team, is that your best players are being your best workers. He's being our best leader.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thanks.
We'll have a
Appreciate
transcript on our
getting Manti
transcript up on our website later today.